Shields up, Iron Breakers. Today we're going to be talking about Dragon Age the Veilguard. So yesterday we had an embargo lift that allowed a bunch of content creators that got to play the game a couple of weeks ago to finally post their impressions. So I went ahead and I watched a lot of those first impressions from those content creators. They've played for about 6 hours. Some of them got to play for 7 hours because they skipped lunch or something like that. But I watched a lot of impressions of people that have played this game. A week before that, IGN themselves also got to post their preview impressions because they probably worked out some type of exclusivity deal with EA to get to post their impressions a little bit earlier than the embargo for everybody else. So basically, I've watched all of that stuff, and today I'm going to be giving you guys my thoughts on everything that was said. So I'd like to start by saying that most of the people that got to play the game have been overwhelmingly positive with their impressions. They do have a couple of criticisms that I'm going to be pointing out as I tell you guys my own impressions from the gameplay that I've seen from them, as well as the gameplay that we've seen before. Like this right here is the gameplay reveal trailer that we're watching right now, and then we're going to be watching some combat gameplay that's been available on the official YouTube channel for Dragon Age as well, so that I can give you guys my own critiques on my thoughts on the combat action. But let's go ahead and get things started. My personal opinion is the art style is still one of those things that I personally can't get behind. Now, a lot of the content creators that did get to play the game, they did say that after a couple of hours of playing the game, it didn't really bother them that much anymore. But for me, I don't know. I have played the previous Dragon Age games. Obviously, I've played Dragon Age Origins. Absolutely love that game, although that was years and years and years ago. Dragon Age 2, did not like it as much. I did play it through completion on my PlayStation 3. But I really didn't like the game that much. I felt like they were trying to pull like the whole Mass Effect thing, and it was not really my thing. And Dragon Age Inquisition, I fell off of it pretty hard shortly after it launched. I played it for a decent chunk of time, but then I was like, I don't know, man. It's just not gelling with me for whatever reason. And I believe that was the case for a lot of people. A lot of people suffered from the whole hinterlands thing and whatnot. But coming back to the Veilguard, once you've played the previous Dragon Age games, which this is a very dark and gritty universe in case you guys aren't aware, and you look at this polished look that you can see in these characters, it is very off-putting. I will say that. And I have seen a lot of content creators saying that like they actually don't mind it that much, whatever. I looked at their gameplay, I look at this gameplay, it is very off-putting, particularly if you are to compare it with Dragon Age Origins, which is fairly old. I completely understand that. Yes, I can sympathize with that. But I don't know. This almost feels like a Disney-fied Dragon Age. And there's also a little bit of concern on my end from a recent news article that I talked about on Cons Anvil, which is the fact that EA is quadrupling down on implementing generative AI. And in a way, a lot of these characters, you know, I don't want to be insulting to artists. I don't know if AI technology was used in this game or not. But like I said, the art style definitely doesn't gel with me, and the whole like super clean aesthetic that these characters have is just something that I don't know if I will ever get to a point that I'm not going to find off-putting. But beyond that, there's another thing, which is I'm not sure if we're going to be seeing it in this gameplay, but judging from the gameplay that I've seen from other content creators, there was definitely like this very heavy bloom filter on there, which took me all the way back to like early 2000s. I don't know if you guys remember, back in the day, there were a lot of games coming out on PC and they had that option for the bloom option. It was like an option for the amount of bloom that you wanted to have on your game, because it was one of the ways of disguising like the limited textures that we had back in the day, right? And it kind of takes me back to that. It's like you have this super clean aesthetic on these characters, very Disney-fied. I kind of think that you can put a lot of these characters straight up in a Pixar movie and they're not going to be looking out of place. And then on top of it, you add a bunch of bloom and it just looks like you smeared a bunch of Vaseline on the screen. That does bother me, but that's neither here nor there. That's just my overall impressions on their art style. Maybe I'll come around to it when I actually play the final game, if that even ends up happening, so we'll see if that is the case or not. The overall visuals is not something that I'm super impressed by, but like I said, a lot of content creators did say that it feels way better when you're actually playing it than just looking at it through YouTube footage. And one of the things that I will say is that often my first impressions on visuals and animations have been disproven once I actually get to play the games. Now, Besides that, one of the important things is naturally going to be the character creator, which is one of the things that a lot of content creators touched upon, and they all showered it with praise for the most part. People are saying, man, you can really do a lot of detailed stuff, and the character creator is actually one of the things that I am excited for, and let me tell you guys why. Unfortunately, when it comes to fantasy games, there's just not that many games that allow you to play as a dwarf. Now, I'm not saying that there are no games. There's several games, but not a lot of them let you play as a dwarf. Now, me personally, I love playing as dwarves. It was like my main character when I played World of Warcraft. I always played as a dwarf. And also other fantasy games whenever they let me create a dwarf. If you guys remember when we played Dragon's Dogma 2, I like playing as a dwarf. And since I don't have that many games that let me play as a dwarf, this is going to be one of those. So I'm like, hells yeah, I get to play as a dwarf. That's something that makes me very happy. So character creator wise, a lot of people showered it with praise with all that stuff. There's a lot of things that you can make to really fully customize your character, a lot of options. Also, the significant amount of inclusion. There's pronouns if that is something that is going to bother you, so just be aware of that. There's pronouns, and what was the other thing? So there's pronouns, you can choose your gender, but then there's also like all of these different things that you can do with, you can add like top scars to your character and all that stuff. I understand that this is going to be a major turnoff for a lot of people. Me personally, it's like, look, I care about what the actual game is going to be like. Giving people a bunch of options, that's not really something that I care that much about. But I understand points of views from both sides. I've always said, like, look, everybody do with this as you will. To me, it's like, I'm not going to be putting top scars on my dwarf. That's not something that I'm particularly interested in, so it's whatever. It's going to be a feature that some people will use, some people will not. We shall see how that pans out. My biggest concern is actually going to be in the story of the game itself. If that is going to be something that is going to be pushed onto the story with political narratives and all of that stuff, I don't know if that is going to be the case or not. We shall see. A lot of people, again, from the content creators that actually got to play the game, they were saying that they enjoyed the story that they were presented with. Me personally, I don't have that high expectations when it comes to the story of this game, mostly because of, what we've seen so far from the gameplay and whatnot, how they're treating the characters themselves. Although it was interesting to hear from a couple of content creators that BioWare themselves, at least some people in BioWare, were not huge fans of that first trailer that we got, which has the Borderlands style of presentations, which is one of the things that I looked at that and I was like, this ain't Dragon Age. Like, what the hell are you guys trying to do here? This is some weird nonsensical stuff that is going on. I don't know what you guys are doing, but this is not Dragon Age. And as it turns out, thanks for that, passing by train. I appreciate you. But as I was saying, that's not what I would expect from Dragon Age, and it seems that a lot of people from BioWare themselves did not expect, they were not particularly pleased with that trailer, so maybe that is something that once I actually get into the story of the game, I might enjoy it, might not enjoy it, but I want to wait until I actually get to experience it myself to tell you guys all about that. Now, in regards to character choices and stuff like that, which has always been a thing in BioWare games, there were a lot of creators saying that these choices actually matter significantly. They saw a lot of actions, a lot of choices that they've made throughout the different sections that they were able to play of the game, and some of the consequences that they got to witness from those choices were actually somewhat meaningful. Now, from what I have seen, it just seems like one of the things that they were referencing is that there's always a character that ends up getting injured if you choose to have that character help you or something like that. And it just seems like that character changes based on who you choose, but there's always one character that ends up injured. Again, this is by collating experiences from a bunch of different content creators that actually got to play the game. So, I don't know if things are going to be as meaningful as all that, but I will take their word for it for the stuff that they've experienced that they were not really allowed to show. But we shall see if that is the case or not. Now, one of the criticisms that I have definitely seen is that a lot of people were saying that the character performances felt a little bit flat, which doesn't really surprise me because, again, when you look at the character models, it just doesn't seem like they're that expressive. So I don't know how these cutscenes are going to work out. We shall see how that pans out. Another criticism that I've heard is that the lip syncing is not particularly good. Again, I'm just reporting to you guys my collated, the collated experiences of a bunch of different content creators. This is the overall vibe that I've got from their stuff. Now, when it comes to the level design, they've went away from actually making an open world kind of game, which is kind of what we got with Dragon Age Inquisition. Even though it was separated by zones, each zone kind of operated as its own little mini open world, and that is where the hinterland problems came from, wherein once you first get to the hinterlands, if you're a completionist type player like me, you would end up basically getting completely drowned in side quests all over the place, and a lot of those ended up being like menial tasks and stuff like that. And this time around, it seems that the team is choosing to go for a little bit more linear levels. They are saying that there's like side paths and stuff that you can go down to do a little bit of side exploration, but for the most part, that a lot of these levels do feel linear. They do also mention that you'll eventually go back to those levels to do like side quests and stuff like that, but fundamentally way more linear and way less open worldy. And to be completely honest, I know that for a lot of people are like, oh no, I want open world, I need open world. Open world is a must for my Dragon Age experience. For me, it's like, I don't really care that much about open world. I feel like there's a ton of games that are doing open world, and then oftentimes what that ends up being is just a bunch of busy work that you get to do with collectibles and some menial side quests, and it's not really that important to have that open world experience there. Again, this obviously changes depending on what type of open world games you are playing, but that has just been my experience over the years. Now, granted, the fact that they chose to do more linear levels is one of those things that I'm like, this could be a good thing because it allows them to do a more curated experience. But at the same time, I also suspect that they are doing this due to the fact that, if you guys remember, initially when this game was called Dragon Age Dreadwolf, this was supposed to be a 4-player co-op game. So the fact that it seems that most levels divide themselves into a couple of corridors and that then lead into an arena where you fight like a bunch of monsters, and then you go into another corridor, and then you go into another arena. That appears to be the overall, structure of these levels that you are getting in this game. It doesn't really surprise me because it seems like they're trying to at least make use of some of the assets that they've developed when this game was still going to be a multiplayer title, which right now it is no longer going to be. It's just strictly single player and all of that. But it seems like there's some remnants of its multiplayer nature still there. Again, this is speculation from my part. You should watch some of these videos from the content creators that actually got to play the game if you want to know a little bit more about that. But that is just my interpretation of it, because whenever you're doing a co-op game, you would want to have like these more segmented levels. And I'm not entirely against that if the combat is good enough to really, bring in that experience and to make it good. And the combat seems to be one of the things that is, calling my attention the most. Now, for those of you guys that aren't aware, there's always been this system that they've kind of introduced with Mass Effect, if I'm not mistaken. I forget if it was Mass Effect 1 or Mass Effect 2. I think it was actually present in Mass Effect 1 as well. If you were to do like biotic stuff, you'd be able to like do the pull, which would lift enemies up in the air, and then you would do the push, and it would throw your special power, and it would hit the enemy, and it would like get flung into wherever, right? And that was really cool. So that was kind of like, I feel, one of the first primer detonation type of things. But again, I don't remember if it was actually considered primer and detonation. It was just a combo that you could do. And then in Mass Effect 2, they kind of like worked on that a little bit better. And then eventually, by the time they got to Mass Effect Andromeda, which is a game that a lot of people crap on, and I agree, because Mass Effect Andromeda deserves a lot of the criticism that it got. At 100% is a game with a ton of problems. But when it came to the actual gameplay elements, I thought that the combat of Mass Effect Andromeda was really fun. That was one of the things that I pointed out in my review that I did of the game like all those years ago. I actually really enjoyed the combat, which is one of the reasons why I also really enjoyed the combat of Anthem. And I know that a lot of people also don't like Anthem, and me personally, when it came to the actual gameplay loop of Anthem, I thought that it was a ton of fun. I enjoyed playing Anthem. I enjoyed the moment-to-moment gameplay, I enjoyed the flying, and I really enjoyed the primer and detonation type of combat that a lot of content creators are referencing is going to be present in this game. So that seems like it's going to be a cool aspect of it. There's also been several God of War comparisons, because it seems like the game this time around is going to be much more about action combat than ever before. Now, there's also another criticism that I have here. Like, if you're going to shift the nature of the game as much as you are right now, right? Because for those of you that aren't aware, right, Dragon Age Origins was much more of a tactical type RPG where you were supposed to like really plan your actions out and you would be pausing, and which you can see in this gameplay as well. You're still pausing, but obviously the combat itself is way more action focused than previous Dragon Age games. But if you are shifting the type of combat and the overall gameplay that you're going to be doing in the game, the overall structure to the game, to a game that's going to be more linear, at least that's what it seems like it's going to be, even though there are going to be choices and consequences and all that stuff. It seems like overall the game itself is going to be more linear than what we are used to when it comes to Dragon Age. For shifting all of that, you're shifting the art style to such an extent that for a lot of players, this art style is even kind of alienating. If you're going to shift all of that, I almost wish that they would have just done a brand new IP instead of just using Dragon Age, because a lot of people are coming to Dragon Age for a specific thing, and maybe this package is just so different that it would have made sense making it its own thing. But, you know, it is what it is. They're going to be doing this because of brand recognition and all of that. People know Dragon Age. People get excited for Dragon Age, and it is going to happen whether you like it or not. So we shall see. But like I said, I like this type of combat with the primer and the detonation from my experience with the previous games. I don't know if it's going to feel as good with this one, but I am curious to see it. However, there is another thing that they've changed that a lot of people don't like, and that is the fact that you no longer get to control your companion NPCs. And the reasoning behind this is because combat apparently is going to get so complex that you are going to want to be focusing on the combat of your character. But even though you don't get direct control over the companion NPCs, you're going to be giving them a bunch of instructions to use the primer detonation type of combat that we've been talking about. And that is going to be done through that pause menu that we've seen. You're going to be able to like tell them, okay, put this ice thing here, and then you yourself can detonate the ice thing with one of your own combos. Or you can even just have two characters that detonate combos between themselves, and you can order them, okay, you do the ice thing here, you do the fire thing here that detonates the ice thing, big explosion, big AoEs. But that is going to be something that I feel like a lot of people are going to have to master in terms of the combat. And that is actually sounds interesting to me, even though the option was there, and I understand that a lot of people enjoy that option. I think that that option should still be there for you to take direct control of your companions. It was never really a feature that I personally use that much. I would usually try to focus on my character. Well, actually, no, I'm lying. On Dragon Age Origins, I absolutely use it. I absolutely would have to take direct control of the characters because their AI was less than stellar, let's put it like that. But in Dragon Age 2, I feel like I didn't have to do that as much. And then in Dragon Age Inquisition, I definitely focused more on my character than anything else. So me personally, I usually prefer to focus on my character and hopefully be allowed to do a couple of like AI settings for my companions so that they do things when I would like them to do those. But it seems like a lot of the time we're also going to be just pausing, and whilst not taking direct control, you are ordering them like, oh, shoot this spell here, do this thing there, and that will trigger like this massive combo with the primer detonator shenanigans. So that seems like it'll be interesting. I understand that it's going to be very divisive for a lot of people. It is what it is. Now, beyond that, when you're looking at the build diversity, and that is actually one of the things that we can start taking a look at in this other video that they've shown, when you are looking... Let me just lower the volume here. When you are looking at build diversity, it seems like these characters are actually going to have quite a lot of things that you can do. Looks like you can put up to 4 abilities that we can see right here. They're setting up like a warrior, assign abilities and ultimate attacks before jumping into battle. There's also going to be a bunch of equipment that you're going to be putting on your characters. And there's like this these runes that you're going to be equipping to specific items and whatnot. Choose runes that boost the warrior's damage and help with crowd control. So, yeah, you see like this weaken thing. That's like one of the primers that then can be detonated by other classes. And then you have this massive skill tree that you can choose from. And each combat class, of which apparently there's going to be 3 base classes, you're going to be able to do warrior, rogue, or mage. But then each of those base classes is going to have access to 3 specializations. I don't know all of those by heart, but there's going to be different specializations, 3 different specializations for your warrior, 3 for your mage, 3 for your rogue. So, you know, you're going to be able to choose different branches. So here it looks like they're playing with Warrior, with the Champion branch, and there's a bunch of passive things that you can do to come up with a build. And something that was very good to hear is that content creators were saying that they would be in a group with a bunch of other content creators, and everybody had vastly different builds for what they were doing, and everybody was apparently progressing through the game just fine. So the build diversity is actually something that I am very excited about, because as you guys know, I like build theory crafting. I think that that is a very fun aspect of these kinds of games, and that is usually one of the things that I enjoy doing. For this build, you want a full set of heavy armor to activate our heavy armor mastery passive. So there's also certain passives that get activated by the type of armor that you're wearing. Sword and shield that allows it to be more defensive, but I think you can swap to two-handed midway even. Two-handed weapons deal more damage, but have fewer defensive options. You guys know me, I'm going to be playing sword and board, so we'll see. Spellbound Longsword deals high stagger and can trigger powerful takedowns. We'll cover stagger in part 2 of this series. There's also mechanics around you upgrading these weapons and customizing them to some extent back at the hub, where you get to interact with your NPCs and have your relationships and all that stuff. So yeah, this is the build that they're going with, and we're going to be jumping into some gameplay here if I'm not mistaken. So this is Rook. This is our main character. I'm not sure how much you'll be able to control for your companions. Select the companions can aid Rook by equipping complementary gear and passives. You will be able to control some of it, as you can see. Looks like they're going to be taking 2 tanks here or something. You should bring Davrin into battle with you. So this is one of the things that I thought was interesting, because this game is going to have more of a mission structure as opposed to, like I said, so these as opposed to the previous Dragon Age Inquisition, more open worldy type thing. And so before every mission, it seems that you just get to choose who you're taking with you, almost like a fighter game. It's an interesting type of gameplay selection that they're doing here. But as you can see, we have a bunch of companions available to us. I'm not sure if they've revealed all of the companions that are going to be available, but I'm probably going to be keeping Dwarf Lady with me at all times because I'm obviously biased towards dwarves. It is what it is. So they're going to be taking Lucanus, which is some dude that is like possessed by a demon or something like that. And now we actually get to see some of the combat gameplay. Now the Rook, Davrin, and Lucanus have the right gear and skills. Team sets off to find their allies. Soon they're met with resistance by the Darkspawn. See, that looks cool. Even though I'm not a big fan of the art style, that looks cool. As you can see, this is what I'm talking about right here, right? You can see the combo opportunities, so you can choose to do this ability, which comes from this dude that I'm assuming is the guy with the shield. I think he's called Davrin. And then this guy over here would be Lucanus. And you are able to pick and choose the spells that they're going to cast on specific enemies to go ahead and trigger these primer detonation things that I was telling you. Abilities which exploit a weakness have a green outline. Rook encounters swarm of dark spawns who favor overwhelming melee. Okay. Ghouls are joined by Hurlock Spikers. Ranged combatants who are also vulnerable to fire. So you're going to be shooting fire at them. I'm not sure how I feel about just like the sheer amount of UI elements that are popping up every time that you pause. Because like, look at all the information you're given. It would be cool if you had to earn this information. Like if you had to fight them first and then learn about their weaknesses and then you're given these things. Maybe that's the way it works. I'm not exactly sure. But it just seems like you'll be given all this information from the get-go. So we got some combat animations. Looks like there's some parry action going there. Our character got smacked upside the head by the spiker in the back. Successful parry, the fiery resolve passive skill activates flaming weapons. Okay, so when you parry, you get flaming weapons. That's part of the build that they were working with. So the weapon now deals fire damage instead of physical. I mean, I love that. You just kick that dude off a cliff. Shield throw is an effect. Oh, you can throw your shield like Captain America. I'm all about that. I wonder what's the cooldown on that. Looks like there's charges to the shield thing. Lucanus will attack this target. So you can basically tell them, okay, you attack this, you attack the other one. So you can manually tell them which targets you want them to attack. And then you can also decide which spells you want them to cast where. There's also taunt mechanics, so you can tank and do stuff like that. Which is what I want to do. I won't be a big tank. Spectral Bulwark. It's like an AoE shielding mechanic. There's the parry. These animations aren't really selling this amazing combat to me. Like, it's okay, but it's not really mind-blowing or anything like that. Buffs, debuffs, and crowd control. Okay. Just show me the gameplay. Getting pulled around, getting yeeted. Okay, so you're doing Titan Stomp, applies Overwhelm, and which combos... Okay, so when you are in this pause menu, you can see that as you choose this, it instantly tells you this debuff, Overwhelm, combos with this. So you're going to do the Overwhelm by doing the Stomp in the ground with the Warrior, and then you're going to be able to combo it with this, and it's going to detonate into some massive explosion. Like right there, Overwhelm. Now watch. Here comes the combo. There it is. Did it not detonate? It missed. It seems to have missed, or if it didn't miss, I don't know what the hell happened. But it definitely didn't feel like they were able to apply it properly. Shield Volley passive, which ricochets your shield 3 times if you hit it with a heavy attack. Nice. I like that. I like eating my shield. A lot of quick recovering, a lot of dodge spamming. I don't know. It's like, in a way, I'm super curious about the combat, because a lot of the content creators were saying that, like, oh my god, the combat's really fun. But just by looking at the actual gameplay on here, I'm a little bit hesitant. Like, I can see it potentially being fun, but I need to get my hands on it to really get an overall vibe of what it feels like. Death from above, deal damage from afar. Grappling spear. Oh, you can pull targets. That's neat. Then you stab them. I just don't know about these animations yet. Primers, detonators, and ultimates. Yep, this is what we were talking about. I thought that they were going to do one back there. So they are going to do the stomp with some type of a taunt so that the enemies don't move away. You get to do grappling spear, which applies overwhelm on that dude, and then you're gonna do, yep, the combo. Activate the crystallized rune to freeze the gathered group in place. Okay, so now they're also frozen, so that they can't move away. Detonate the combo, strike the whole group. There it is. See, that I feel is going to be where the combat's going to feel really good. Planning out those combos, nailing those combos, even if, like, I feel like in Anthem they've done a better job with these combos, but then again, Anthem would have, like, you could throw rockets and stuff and have those detonate, so it makes sense. But yeah, let's see about that ultimate attack. So you call in like a mega volley of... Whoa! I get to summon in a meteor strike? Alright. Got a lot of explosive barrels in there too. Looks like it's doing the same combo on that guy. Looks like it's queuing combos. There's the freeze. I'm curious about difficulty options because I know that the game has a bunch of like difficulty toggles. I just hope that they don't mess up the higher difficulties and it's just like bloated HP, because that usually tends to happen whenever developers start going like, oh, we're gonna add 6 difficulty, we're gonna just put 6 difficulties in the game, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, now most of them kind of suck. I usually prefer, when it comes to difficulty, less is more, as in less options usually provides better balanced options. I don't know. I'm still very hesitant on it. I'm still very hesitant on this. I'm probably going to check it out because I am curious about it. But whether or not it's gonna end up being a recommendation, I don't know, dude. This gameplay isn't selling me. But again, like I said, most of the people that actually got to play it were exceedingly positive about most of their experience. So that gives me a little bit of hope, but I don't know. We'll see how it pans out. What about you guys? Let me know in the comment section down below how you feel about the news from Dragon Age the Veilguard. But for now, that's going to be it. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong. Stay safe. Peace out.